This is going to be a regional preview. Going to take a look at each team that the Bulldogs are going to match up against here. Not super deep dives, but a quick profile. And we will start off with the team that they're going to play first with Lipscomb, a team that obviously Mississippi State already saw earlier this season, a team that State swept, including it was like a 26-0 or 23-0 blowout win in the final game of that series. But a team that gets the win and the ASUN championship to get into the postseason. And look, you're expecting State to be able to handle them, right? They're not a great pitching team. Team ERA of 6.22. Their ace, Alexander Linus, has a 5.4 ERA, a 1.4 WHIP. He's 6-4 on the season. 61 strikeouts to 31 walks with a 2.61 average allowed. Not dominant numbers. That's obviously the guy could go out and shove and have the performance of a lifetime. You would look at that and think that Mississippi State could have some success. And when State faced him earlier in the year, he did go 5 innings in that game. It only gave up 3 runs, 4 strikeouts, 6 hits allowed. So, State was able to get some guys on base, but not capitalize as much as maybe they would have liked to. State obviously getting the win in that game. I think you're going to trust State's bats to be able to take advantage. Now, look, they do have some talented relievers. Caleb Cantola, a 1.69 ERA, a 1.05 WHIP, 29 Ks to 12 strikeouts with a 1.78 average allowed. So when that guy comes in, that's someone that can certainly compete for them. And has 9 saves on the season, so has performed well in that role. So they've got their bullpen arms have probably been a little bit more impressive than their starting pitching for the season as a whole. At the plate, there's some pop. Cam Pruitt has a 3.56 ERA. He's slugging .507 on the season, 48 RBI, only 2 home runs. So, not a guy who necessarily hits for a ton of power, and not a ton of pop in the lineup. Jordan Thomas leads the team with 10 home runs, slugging .592. He's going with a 3.09 average, 47 hits, 40 RBI for him. You also have Hudson Miles batting .351, 3.18 from Brady Miller, Aaron Steglogiannis at 3.09, and then Kai Holm at 3.02. Again, not a team that is going to hit a bunch of deep shots. Do have their fair share of doubles. A team that really wants to manufacture at the plate a little bit. They will be able to draw some walks here or there. They also do a good job from stolen bases and being able to capitalize in those ways, which that's going to be a theme when we talk about these couple of teams at the 2 or the 3 seed. Base running is going to be a big thing. It's been a problem for Mississippi State this year, both in terms of their offense and their defense. You've got some competition that are going to play that small ball style and try to take advantage, and State's going to need to be at their best to handle that. And it sounds like Kevin Maluski healthy once again. Having him back behind the plate is going to be a big deal for getting that solved. But that's going to be a big thing to watch. And if you allow a bunch of free passes, have some errors that allow some base runners to advance, that's how you get yourself in trouble in a game like this against Lipscomb. If you go out and play clean baseball, don't allow those stolen bases, you're probably just going to be able to overpower them. If not, that's how you get into trouble, is making those mistakes. State's going to have to play clean baseball for sure in order to get through this game smoothly. That's what you're ultimately looking for. MSU did make the decision to start Duke Stone. So their typical Sunday guy, which I say that he's been a Saturday guy for much of the season this year. So they're pitching off, and that's a debate every single year. Is that the right move? I think it's the right move for State. I think you absolutely save Tomas Valinkas for Saturday, whatever that matchup is. God forbid you're in a win or go home. You want to have him ready to go. But, of course, if you're in the winner's bracket, you're facing your toughest competition. You need to get to 2-0. And you need to assure yourself your best chance at getting to 2-0. And then, look, State's got – if you're talking about Ryan McPherson being the guy that you're trotting out there in a third game, assuming you get to that point, that's a great spot to be. And, again, he's full go. Everything Brian O'Connor had to say in his press conferences after the regional announcement is that McPherson's going to be set to go out there and roll. That's great for State. You feel really good going into the postseason knowing that guy's fully healthy. But back to this decision with Duke Stone. Stone has been good enough for State this year. I thought he was fine in that last outing against Georgia. I know he gave up a few runs there, but it was one big hit. It wasn't like he was letting Georgia just manufacture runs off of him when he was in. And look, he's been up and down at times throughout the season, but I think you have to trust Duke Stone to do enough in this game. And look, if you give up some runs, you got to go to the bullpen early. Okay, that's fine. It is what it is. Your lineup should produce. Again, I mentioned pitching is not a strength for Lipscomb. You should be able to, if you have to put double-digit runs on the board for whatever reason, you should be able to go out and do it. I'm not saying that's what State's going to do, but that needs to be your thought process going into this thing. And, there's been a few people who have said it, and it's frankly true. If you can't go and you beat a 4-seed Lipscomb with your third starter, you probably were never winning this regional to begin with. And again, you understand upsets happen. It's baseball. Sometimes those teams get hot and just find a way. Maybe, like I said, for Lipscomb, maybe you see Alexander Lemus go out and just Linus have an all-time performance, and he's mowing State down. And State, I mentioned, if they make some errors base running wise, you won't be able to get through, and you find yourself falling victim to a 4-1 upset. But I think if that's going to happen to you, then you just were never getting it done to begin with. So I like the decision to go with Duke Stone. Put yourself in your best position possible against the tougher teams you're going to face. Let's talk about those teams. We'll go to the 2 seed, the Cincinnati Bearcats. An interesting team. And the thing you continue to hear, everyone who talks about this team has said it's a unique approach offensively. And when you look where they stand within the Big 12 conference, which is obviously a very good league, led the Big 12 with 115 stolen bases on 133 attempts. They are very aggressive on the base path. As I've alluded to, that's the case with every team in this regional. It's the same case with ULL is also. But especially for Cincinnati, that is going to be a big thing to watch with them as you go throughout this game. And assuming that's who you face. Obviously, you don't know for sure you're going to see the Bearcats in this. But if you do face Cincinnati, that's a huge part of what they do. But they're also a pretty well-rounded offense overall. Batting .300 as a team on the season. 84 home runs, so you've got some power there. They were 6th in the Big 12 with a .492 slugging percentage. You walk at a normal rate of about 270. Strikeout-wise, a little bit higher on the strikeouts, 525, which was the 4th most in the Big 12. So that is something to watch with them. State's got some good strikeout pitchers, especially when you talk about if you're seeing Cincinnati in game 2 and you're throwing Valinkas, that's a guy who throws a lot of strikeouts. And Cincinnati's a team that does strike out quite a bit at times. So that'll be a thing to watch with them. But it's a really, really talented team with a lot of pop in the lineup. Enzo and Felice is the Big 12 freshman of the year, .371 average on the season, 9 home runs, 44 RBI, 79 hits, which is second on the team, slugging .550-45. Quinton Coates, all-conference player for them, .346 average with a 1.195 OPS, leads the team with 28 home runs and 78 RBI, just slugging 764. So absolutely massive season for him. Good at stealing bases, as you would expect. A lot of these guys are. 16 home runs from Jack Natilli, batting .336. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 guys in the lineup batting .300 or better. And, 6 guys with a 900-plus OPS. A couple guys over 1,000, Natilli being the other one there. Jackson Smith, 21 stolen bases on 23 attempts in the season. This is a talented lineup. It's going to be a test for whoever MSU has on the mound if you do see Cincinnati. I keep assuming you're going to see them. There's no guarantee. But if assuming you do see the Bearcats, it's going to be a challenge. But your hope is that if you face this team, you're facing them with Valinkas out there, in which you trust MSU's chances to go out and handle business a little bit. On the mound, Cincinnati's been pretty solid. They were 3rd in the Big 12 with a 4.94 ERA. Within the conference, 3rd in batting average allowed at .259. Strikeout-wise, a pretty high strikeout team. 524 on the season. And pretty good about limiting the walks. Only 211 walks on the year. 72 home runs allowed, so can definitely give up some big hits for sure. So a state team that's got the power that it does, that stands out. But it's a talented team at the plate for sure. Now, Cincinnati is going to be throwing their starter, Nathan Taylor, who was an all-conference selection against Louisiana, as you would expect, which would mean that for assuming you see this team in the next game, you're almost certainly going to face Logan Knight, who has a 4.99 ERA, 1.23 WHIP, 248 average allowed, 60 strikeouts to 16 walks, so a pretty good ratio there for him in 65 innings pitched. That would be their number 2 guy. And then, out of the bullpen, Adam Buckowski, 6 saves on the year and 27 appearances, a 3.83 ERA, 1.2 WHIP, 5 saves from Dominic Morrow, a 5.17 ERA, 1.52 WHIP. So, look, it's a solid pitching staff, not a dominant unit, and they're not necessarily dominant at the plate either. They're just really all around a solid team. That's kind of the best way to describe Cincinnati, is all around solid. Now, the one weakness for them, they were third to last in the Big 12 with a 9.72 fielding percentage. So they can make some mistakes defensively. And if you're Mississippi State, you definitely have to be able to take advantage of that. But we've seen State at times, the base running has not been something they've been great at. So if you have to be smart about if you get those opportunities, capitalizing on them, but you also have to make sure you actually got an opportunity. But it's a really good team, and a team that if Mississippi State sees them, it'll be a challenge. But again, your hope is that you get through game 1, and if you have to see Cincinnati, you're going full strength out there with your ace, and you're trusting your ability to be able to get yourself to 2-0. If it's not the Bearcats and State faces the Raging Cajuns, it's another pretty talented team. Now, ULM is hot. They've won a lot of games. They won a lot of, I think it was 4 weekend series to close out the season that they won. Took a series from Southern Miss, took a series from Coastal. They've battled and have performed well down the stretch. Not so much at the plate. They are 12th in the Sun Belt with a 2.69 batting average. They do walk at a good rate, 262 walks on the season, so they do a pretty good job. That's how they find their way getting onto base. Now, they still strike out quite a bit. They're the 4th most strikeouts in the Big 12. In the Sun Belt with 470. So high walk, but also high strikeout is what you kind of see with this team. Stolen bases, though, another one of those keys. They're 3rd in the Sun Belt with 111 stolen bases on the season on 151 attempts. So the rate of conversion is not all that great for them, but they're going to be aggressive and try to get on that way. But when you talk about a lack of pop, only 46 home runs on the season as a team, slugging .405. So definitely the damage is not being done at the plate. Only 2 guys batting 300 plus. Lee Amity at 311 and then Colt Brown at 307. Amity leads the team with 7 home runs. Sorry, no, that's wrong. Donovan LaSalle leads the team with 11, and Amity is second. LaSalle batting only 230, so kind of your classic home run or strikeout type guy for the team. On the base path, Noah Lewis is a guy who's going to steal quite a few bases. Drew Markle the same way. But again, a lot of guys who are going to try. Blaze Rodriguez, 15 for 25. So the guy named Blaze, they're going to send him. The conversion rate not great, but he's definitely going to be very aggressive if he's on the base path. A team that wants to kind of play some small ball, if that's who you're going to face. And again, that means it's all about execution. And like I said, they do strike out quite a bit. So for State, you could, lean on that, but also walk at a high rate. State at times has been been poor about giving up walks. That's been an issue for Mississippi State at times this season. So going to have to be careful with this team if you do see Louisiana. They are better pitching-wise, though. That's where it's a little bit more of a strength for this team this season. 4th in the Sun Belt with a 4.96 ERA on the season. In terms of batting average allowed, this is where their batting average allowed at 247 is 12th in the league. So they've given up some hits. 81 home runs allowed on the season, which is the most allowed by any team in the Sun Belt. So they've given up some hits. They've given up some big hits, but they find ways to get out of it. And strikeouts are a big part of it. 533 strikeouts on the season, which is the 3rd most in that conference. Walks wise, do a good job of limiting walks. 226 allowed on the season, which is kind of middle of the pack, but it's not like a crazy number. So, they're a little bit of a strikeout or home run type pitching staff, but it's a pretty good group on the mound. Now, this is a note. Steve Robertson had this. Steve Robertson from Gene Space 247. Louisiana head coach Matt Deggs shares that the Raging Cajuns will start their typical right-hander Cody Brash against Cincinnati on Friday. Mentioned that Ty Roman may get the start in Game 2 and shared that Andrew Herman has thrown a lot and was not certain when he may pitch this weekend. So when you look at Louisiana pitching-wise, sorry. I got lost for a second. Cody Brash getting the start. He has not started regularly for them this season. Has made 7 starts coming into this game. But is the team leader with a 2.04 ERA, 77 strikeouts, 21 walks, 181 average allowed. He's been fantastic for them. Also has 6 saves. So this is a guy that's played both that bullpen role, but is also .93 whip, outstanding. You understand why they're starting him and why they feel comfortable now putting him in a starting role. But Andrew Herman is the other guy that you would typically see them trot out there. That it's a kind of a conversation whether or not that's going to be the case in this. I have a million tabs open. I apologize for that. Herman on the year, if that is who State ends up seeing, a 4.43 ERA, a 1.13 WHIP, 7-5 on the season, 2.23 ERA allowed, with 108 strikeouts to 33 walks, so a pretty good rate there. But again, there's no guarantee it's going to be him. It sounds like it could be Ty Roman if that's who you end up facing. Roman made 16 starts, 20 appearances, 80 innings pitched, 4.48 ERA with a 1.34 WHIP. He has 84 strikeouts to 33 walks with a 2.48 average allowed. It's a solid pitching staff. They've got some good arms. Hayden Pearson in 24 appearances this year, 32 innings pitched, is a 2.81 ERA. In fact, they got quite a few guys in the bullpen that have put up some nice numbers for them. So if you face Louisiana, that's going to be a team that tries to challenge you more at the plate. Now, like I mentioned, the home run numbers are significant. They give up quite a few home runs. State, that's something you would want to be able to take advantage of. You've got so much pop up and down that lineup that you feel like that can be an equalizer for you if you end up facing teams that are maybe not letting you get as many guys on base, which with both Cincinnati and Louisiana, that's kind of what you're facing. Looking at those two opponents, because I know it's been a popular selection, for those teams to maybe be able to pull an upset. I was interested. I know Baseball America put out the graphic, or really put out an article that had like how those teams performed. How teams like overall like advanced numbers for offense and for their pitching on the season. And I kind of went through that for all the tournament teams that these teams faced, and how did their bats perform against the best pitching staffs they faced? How did their pitching staffs perform against the best lineups that they faced? So for Cincinnati, against the best lineups they faced, teams have been able to score on them some. They did shut down Auburn and an 8-0 victory, but Oklahoma State, double-digit runs in all 3 games in that series. Arizona State was able to put up 10 runs on them. West Virginia had 9 runs, 2 runs, and 5. So 2, limited there. But against Kansas, held them, shut out Kansas in 1 game, but gave up 8 and 13 and a couple others. So Cincinnati, that pitching staff, it's been solid this year, but against good hitting teams, those teams have been able to put some runs on the board. For Louisiana in that same category, against good hitting teams, they've kind of given up some runs. Missouri State, 8, 13, and 7 in 3 games faced. Texas State, 4, 11, and 16. Now, Southern is not dominant at the plate. They're obviously much more of a pitching-first team, but, they're a good team all around. They held Southern Miss to 4 and 5 runs in 2 of the games, gave up 8 in another. Against Troy, 7 runs, 6, 15. So those are 2 pitching staffs. Whether State sees Cincinnati or Louisiana, those teams have given up some runs. Like you would trust State's lineup to produce. I'm going to go into this confident State's going to be able to put some runs on the board. Pitching-wise, it's against good pitching, those teams have stepped up, is the thing you'll say. When Cincinnati is against the best pitching staffs they've seen, they put 11 runs, 6 runs, and then had 1 game where they didn't score against Jacksonville State. I mentioned they put up 8 runs against Auburn. Against Kansas and West Virginia, not offensive explosions in those games, but they were respectable offensively against a couple of good pitching staffs there. Now, Louisiana did not see a lot of great pitching, but against USM, they had one game where they scored 1 run. And I only mentioned 3 games for their pitching staff, but for Louisiana against USM, facing the USM pitching, 8 runs, 6 runs, 7 runs. So they performed well. And then against Coastal, one game where they got shut out, one game where they were held to 3, but 7, 12, and 5 in the other games. So I've seen 2 teams that against really good pitching have had some good days offensively, but against really good lineups have given up a lot of runs. Kind of feel like we might see a lot of runs in Starkville this weekend. I would lean towards some offensive explosion at times, but I'm also going to trust Valinkus and hopefully McPherson back full go to be able to perform. I like State to be able to get through this regional. I don't know if they'll go 3-0. It could be a 2-0 and then take a loss type situation. I think State gets through this. I overall think the matchups are favorable enough. They're dangerous teams. Cincinnati more so than Louisiana. I don't know that I buy that Louisiana is going to be able to come into Starkville and take a regional. I think Cincinnati could press State a little bit, and I would think Cincinnati gets it done against Louisiana. So I think this is going to be a State versus Cincinnati battle when it's all said and done. But I like State to get the regional. I think for all the criticisms you can have in this Mississippi State team this year, when they have faced teams of a similar caliber or lesser caliber, they've mostly handled business. And I think they're going to be able to do that. I think it's a little bit different now that you're in the postseason. Ideally back to full strength once again. I like Mississippi State to be able to take the regional this weekend, and we'll see where that holds. Obviously, you're probably going to Athens with Georgia on deck next, but maybe postseasons continue to go poorly for the other Bulldogs, and you get an upset, and you're talking about postseason baseball in Starkville once again with the super regional. But we won't get too far ahead of ourselves yet, but I do think State can get through this regional.